Hey y'all, thanks for waiting and being patient. I apologize that this has taken as long as it has in order to get to the configuration stage for this. My apologies. Just had things going on, family reunions, some videos, things of that nature, just chasing the fun. But today we're going to go over configuring this up. We're going to do it the simple, basic manner. We're just going to do the basics that you need to do in order to get this puppy in the air. We're not going to worry about all the tricking out. We're not going to worry about PIDs and tunes and throttles and rates and all that stuff. We're just going to get the basic configuration so that you can get up and flying, and then you can build on top of that knowledge from that point. I'm going to do my best to try and make this a one-shot video. Now, because I want it to be easy for you to follow along, now, I'm still not 100% comfortable with talking to a camera, just this black eyeball staring back at me, no facial expressions, uncomfortable. I'm gonna do my best not to my way through it and shoot salad and stutter and stuff like that. But I can't promise anything, so I'm gonna try and keep the edits down to a minimum for you, so that you can follow along and you don't miss a step. But we're gonna set this up now, and we're gonna do the basics, just so you can get up and flying and having fun, and then you can add on to your knowledge from there. And there's not, it's not going to be all that big of a difference as far as flying. We can talk about rates in a second too, but so let's get started. So you want to have your whoop, you want to have some batteries, and you want to have some airflow, a fan of some sort. You want to keep the board cool so you don't cause any damage, burn anything up, stuff like that. So real quick, while we're at it, why don't we open up Betaflight. All right, so let's go ahead and plug in and get connected. I'm gonna turn my fan on, get some air blowing on that. Let me slide it over here, so hopefully it's not too loud for you. All right, first things first. Let's go in. Let's go down to the CLI and let's make a backup. So we're going to type in dump all. Let that run. This may be fast, it may be slow. The different ones take different times. If it's slow, I'll do a quick edit for you here and pick up at the end. Oh, cool. So we're done. So we're going to save this. Let's go to documents and let's do dump, encapsulate dump all underscore, and it's got the name there, T-Motor F4 SX1280. So save. All right. That way, if we mess up, you can start over. All right. So now let's go to firmware flasher. Let's auto detect. There's the name of our target, our name of our firmware, the name of the software, whatever you want to say, and we're going to be on 4.5.1. All right. We're going to leave it on Crossfire because it's got ELRS on board. It can be confusing, but Crossfire and ELRS use the same protocol, even though they're different links and they have different capabilities. I like to just get rid of some of this bloatware. Load firmware online. You can see here this green bar, it's ready to go. We're going to hit flash firmware. We've already made a backup, so ignore the risk. And I don't think I will do an edit here. Just depends on how fast. It's going pretty fast, so I don't think I will, but I may, just to not bore you. So while that's doing that, when we talk about rates. So the rates I'm going to put on this, I'm going to put on rates for a beginner. They're going to be slower. They're going to be 500 instead of the default 6 or 670, whatever it is. And then, some push it up to 900, stuff like that. That's probably about the only tweaking we're going to do. Is my recommendation, being a new pilot, let's slow the rates down to 500. You may want to do 450. You may want to do 550. You can do whatever you want, but I'll show you how to do that. but that might be a good starting point, is slow it down, get comfortable, and then you can speed up if you want to. So now that that's done, we're going to hit connect. So the problem with the configuration was detected. Accelerometer is enabled but not calibrated. Of course it's not. We just flashed. So that's what we're going to do here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our whoop. We're going to point the camera away from us, so forward, and then we're going to lay it flat on the desk and not touch it. We don't want it to move. We want it pointing forward and still. Then we'll hit reset axis, so that realigns the model with the whoop. And then we're going to hit calibrate. And now we're done. We're going to put that back on the fan. All right, so now this tab is done. Let's go to ports. We're going to go to UART2. And we're going to do VTX IRC tramp. And we're going to hit save. Connect. We're going to go to configuration. Configuration, everything is here. You can put a craft name in here if you want to, you know, little whoop, baby girl, whatever, and it can display on your OSD if you want. It just gets in the way, honestly, but you may want to. We're going to change this to 180, this minimum arm angle. That means that this whoop can be 180 degrees upside down, and it will still allow us to arm. At 25 degrees, if it's 30 degrees, it won't arm. So we did it at 180. That way we can turtle mode and flip over if we crash. We'll leave air mode on. A lot of times when you're flying indoor, close quarters, you'll turn air mode off for a tiny whoop. That way when it bumps a wall, some clothes, it won't suck into it. You'll hear it go, and you'll hear the motors go. We'll just leave it on right now to keep it simple. You can turn it off later. And when you want to start getting more technical, we'll leave OSD on. So we'll hit save and reboot. Next thing we're going to do, Failsafe, we want to make sure it's set to drop. Presets, we're not going to do anything here. It's a whoop. It's really not all that important, but also we want to keep things simple, basic. Let's just start from scratch. Let's start at point A, and then you can start learning from there. So PID tuning, we're going to leave everything here the same, except I would recommend go ahead and turn on VBAT sag compensation. That basically, when you start flying, you'll feel your drone, your whoop, peppier at the beginning. It's like zoom, zoom, zoom. And then as the battery drains down, you'll start seeing it sluggish and being a little bit more slow, sloth-like. This allows for it to maintain the same feel from the start to finish. So it tones it down on the beginning of your pack so that your tail end of your pack are in line. Instead of being out of line like this, it's more like this, and more consistent feel while you're flying the sticks. It's a must. Rate profile. So you can see here we're at 670. You can see here 70 for center sensitivity. Here I go. So this is your center stick, and as you go out, as you deflect, you can see that the speed at which your drone responds is going to increase. So what I would recommend is change this to 100. Let's change this to 500. And then let's do this to 20. I think those are pretty good beginning rates. You can even slow this down if you want, and you could take it to 10, and you can see it's a little less sensitive in the middle of your stick, but you don't want it to be too slow. If it's too slow, you're going to crash more and stuff like that. My recommendation is 100. And don't worry, you'll hear 1,000 people say 1,000 different things on what's the appropriate rate. It's about what's good for you. Some like a linear, some like curves. All right. Over time, you'll figure out what you want. And then throttle mid, we'll leave it at 50. So hover point on your whoop is saying hover point on your whoop is at the 50% mark, right? Halfway. That would be your mid. Ideally, you want to try and build things where the thrust to weight ratio is you're down in the 25 range, okay? 25% range. We're just going to leave it at 50 right now, and then we're going to add an expo, and it just gives a tiny, you can see it there, it just gives a tiny little softness right in the middle of your 50%, which would be the hover point on your whoop. And so a little bit more sensitive. It's not going to shoot off from you quite as easy. All right. So let's save that. Receiver. So it's an SPI receiver, which means the receiver is built on board. There's two different types of receivers that are built on board your AIO. There's SPI and there's serial. Serial is a standalone. It's like a whole receiver incorporated, where SPI is part of the firmware that we flashed earlier. I think the SPI just saves space and it's less components or something. I really don't know, but it's a little bit more restrictive. But the way you flash an SPI ELRS receiver on this AIO is this firmware in Betaflight. You don't have to go to ELRS configurator. It's actually in Betaflight. And so the binding phrase, your password, your passphrase is what you're going to type in here. And so I'm going to type in mine. And then you can see here's the numerical value of that. Okay. Then we're going to leave everything else alone. We're going to save and reboot. Now you've flashed your receiver. You've flashed your ELRS receiver to the latest firmware, and you've input a binding phrase. On your radio, when you flash ELRS to this, you will also put the same password, binding phrase, passphrase on it. And then from that point on, anytime you power on, they just connect, and you don't have to worry about holding buttons down and powering on and all this stuff, okay? Modes. So this is going to be where you set up your switches and stuff. So I'm going to disconnect. RF signal critical. I'm going to unplug, replug, so that the radio and telemetry last. The whoop connect. Critical. Telemetry recovered. Okay. So now let's go back to modes. So you can see on receiver, if I move sticks around, we're good. All right. We have good. If this is backwards, sometimes you can come here and you can look at this section. It might say TAER, something odd. You can just click on default, or you can type in AETR1234. All right. That way you can have throttle, and all that good stuff. All right. So let's go to modes. We're going to add an arm. And so arm, we're going to flip our switches, and you can see the little tic tac here. That's what's moving. And so you want to put this bar over the tic tac. Save. Now we go back to receiver. Let me show you this. So this aux1, this channel 1, whichever switch you have that is labeled aux1 with ELRS, that has to be your ARM switch. That's the only switch that has to be assigned to ARM. Nothing else can be assigned to it. aux1 is for arming. Now, for the rest of the modes we're going to put on here, it can be any switch you want, whatever's most comfortable. So let's unhide. So we're going to add angle. Angle will prevent you from doing 180 flips. It's easier to learn how to fly indoors. It allows you to rock front and back without doing a 180. So I'm going to put it on aux4 switch. And so where the tic tac is right now, I'd be in angle mode. When I flip this switch and now the tic tac moves and it's here where there's no bar above it, now we're in acro mode. There's no flight assistance. It's 100%. Whatever you do on the sticks, the drone is going to do. And until you arrest that movement, it's just going to keep going. There's no help. There's no GPS. This isn't DJI. It's 100%. You're in a cockpit of a plane. And whatever you do with that stick, that plane's going to do. Acro. We're in acro mode. Then I flip this switch. Now we're in angle mode. Let's come down. I'll show you how to add a beeper. These little whoops, you're not going to hear a beeper, but I'm going to show you how to add a beeper. So I like my beeper, my turtle mode on aux3, this switch here. And so to me is disengaged. Middle switch is beeper. And then add range, flip over, same button. Oh, farthest away is turtle mode. So off, beeper, turtle mode. Acro, angle mode. Okay. Pre-arm. Pre-arm is very smart to have. On a whoop, it's not that big of a deal. But get in the habit of using it. A pre-arm is something every radio should have, every pilot should use. And you'll assign this to a momentary switch. So when I push this switch, it doesn't stay down. As soon as I let go, it hops. So when I hold it down, that's where the tic-tac is. I'm going to move it over. Pre-arm. Pre-arm. Let me hit save. And let's come up here. We'll hide everything that's not being used. So let's recap. Arm, disarm, acro, angle, acro, beeper, flip over, turtle mode, disarmed, and then pre-arm is my toggle here. Okay, and the way you arm, so you hold down pre-arm and then flip arm, and then you release, and that would arm your drone or whatever. So on the beeper, we're just going to go back here real quick. If you decide you want a beeper, right here is the volume for that beeper. Save. When I put this in beeper, it would beep 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 beep. All right. Let's see here. Motors. So we're set up on D-Shot 300. Because the arrow on this board is pointing forward, is on top and pointing forward with the camera, then each motor will be in the right position for the board. If you had this board pointing back, arrow pointing backwards, now it's 180 degrees, and then you'd have to go in and remap the motors to the board. So motor 1 would be motor 1, not motor 4. Okay, We don't have to worry about that because the arrow is pointing forward. What we're going to do is we're going to click on this. And this is props out away from the camera. Doesn't really matter on whoops, but that's the way I prefer to fly on my open props. And so I prefer to set up everything that way. That way it's always habit. That way when I go to put a prop on, I'm always looking at the prop blades pointing the right direction, the same direction, no matter what I do. If you start changing it, you're going to be putting props on wrong. It's going to flip out when you arm. So just pick one way and just go with it. I like props out because if I hit something, it kind of pushes me away from it. Whereas if props are coming in, it'll grab a tree branch and pull it in me. It grabs the leaves and chops them up, throws it in the camera. Whereas away pushes the stuff away and throws the chopped up leaves into the middle of the drone, not in my camera. So I got something to clean up, but I can still see and fly. Okay, so save.
Telemetry lost.
Go back to motors.
Critical. Telemetry recovered.
I hear you. Okay, so let me turn this off. That way it's not talking. All right, so now we're going to check which way each of these motors is spinning. And I'm going to do my first edit because I got to get my prop tool. Hold on. And the back. Okay. So let's plug in. Give it some juice. Now then, let's go to motor direction. I understand the risks. So with the whoop ducted, like this one, you don't have to worry about props off. But when you start getting into open props, 2-inch, 3-inch, anything, everything, take your props off when you do this. Don't be stupid. Don't cut yourself. Props off on the bench, pre-arm. Because here's the thing I need to understand. This is hobby grade gear, hobby grade everything. But the only thing that's not hobby grade is DJI stuff. So as much investment, as much work people put into this stuff, weird things can happen. It's still hobby grade. All right. So we're going to turn that on. We're going to go to Wizard, and we're going to start to spin the motors. Now all 4 motors are spinning. I wonder if I can show this to you. All right. Maybe you saw that. Maybe you saw that. I tried. Front desktop. So when I push this into the prop, it's pushing it towards the camera, which is the opposite direction. We want it away from the camera, not into the camera. So we're going to go to number 2. We're going to just hit that button. It changes the direction, and you test. Now it's spinning away. So let's check the others. Number 1. Number 3. And then number 4. So they all. So now they're all spin in the right direction. Stop motors, close. Now then, now that we know that the props are out, the motors are out, we won't have it necessarily freak out when you arm the first time. A tip I would give, being new, is I would change this to 6.5. This is how fast the motors spin at idle, and it will help you with having fewer bobbles and stuff when you start out flying. It's still going to happen, but it's going to give you a little bit of help, a little bit of assistance. That when it wants to drop, you don't overreact. It's going to want to drop a little bit slower, a little bit easier on you. So it might be able to help keep you in the air a little bit more. So now that we got that done, we're just going to hit save and reboot. All right, OSD. So OSD, here's what I'm going to recommend that you set up. Let's go to battery voltage, because you want to keep an eye on the battery voltage. You want to land around 3.5, 3.4. we abuse these 1S. A lot of times we just fly till they fall out of the sky. That does kill the life of the battery. But 1S's are so cheap that and you don't get as much juice in these, so we typically just abuse the crap out of them and replace them. But generally, you'd want to land around 3.5, 3.5, 3.6. When it recovers, you'll be back around storage. Let's see here. Fly mode. So if you acro versus air, let's see here. Link quality. You want to know how good your signal is? RSSI DB. Now, link quality and RSSI DB, that's really going to pertain more to outdoor flying, 5-inch, well, 2-inch on up, whatever. Not so much, but again, get in the habit of putting this stuff on. Set everything up as best you can the same way. It just helps with cut down the learning curve. We're going to get rid of warnings. Oh, come on now. See what I mean about hobby grade? I mean, it just is. Sometimes things just don't act right. RSI, let's get rid of that. Now I do want to put throttle position. And the reason I do that, I don't keep it on there all the time. I just keep it on at the beginning of fresh builds because you want to see where where your hover point is. If your hover point is at 30 or 40 or 50, you want to know that. That way you can come back in here and you can adjust this. So if your hover point is at 30, you want to put a 30 in here and save, and that way your hover point is set up in Betaflight property. So when you're at that middle position on your stick where you spend most of your time, Betaflight's syncing up with you, and that's where you're going to get a little bit of cushion versus it being off-centered, if you will. So OSD. So let's go in here now, and this is just preference. Okay, so I don't want that there. Link quality, let's get that over here. Throttle position or value, I usually put it over here. And then I like my flight mode and my battery voltage in the center screen. And then this can go up here. And there's one other thing I meant to put on here. No, that's not it. And so this is going to tell you what band you're on. R for race. It's going to tell you what channel 1 through 8. It's going to tell you your VTX power, what have you. Just a quick, easy reference. That way you can make sure your goggles is on the same setup. So we're going to hit save. And then the last thing is we need come in here. We need to set up our VTX table. I'm going to put in the description, I'm going to put a link to download, or I'm gonna put a link in there so that you can download the VTX table and import it in for yourself. I've got them locally on my desktop, so I'm gonna show you the process, but I'm gonna give you a link so that you can get the VTX table and you're gonna download it. It's like a text file, and then you just upload it just like what I'm fixing to do. So load from file. Let's go to documents. Where did I have that? It's not showing up. Oh, I know what I did. I made a mistake. Oh, I know what I did. Dadgummit. So I accidentally associated that JSON file with a different file type, and that's what happened. My bad. All right, so we're gonna come down here and choose race band. I like race band. I like to come down to channel 8, and then power. We got 25 or 50 milliwatts. I'm gonna go with 25 right now. Here's your table, and you can see race band R. Here's the frequency we'll be at. You can change this anything you want. Hit save. Okay, that's it. So now you've got this all set up. It's the basics. It's the most simple. You can come back and review if you have any questions. I'll put a link so that you can get your hands on the VTX table and upload. And then, of course, if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below or hit me up on Facebook, what have you. I'd be more than happy to try and help you out, get started, get flying. Hopefully it wasn't too wordy, too ummy, too mixed salady or anything like that. But I wanted to try and get one long shot for you and hopefully keep it as unconfusing as possible. Hopefully I did that. We'll see. I'm still getting comfortable with this whole blah, 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 blah to a non-human. But with that said, peace out. Love y'all. Happy flying, and just chase the fun. All right, just chase the fun. All right, peace out. Love y'all.